I'm going to be talking to you about my Playlist Live 2014 experience. This is actually the first Playlist Live that I ever got to go to, so I'm going to be telling you guys all about my experience, from the big things to the large meetups to the people who I met, all the way down to the tiny little details like the food. Like I said, this was my first ever playlist, so I had no idea what to expect, and I even had no idea how I was supposed to register when I got there, and where I was supposed to find food. I looked online for information like all the little details, and I actually didn't find much information, so today I'm going to be telling you guys everything that I experienced while I was there and everything that you need to know. Also, before I get started, I'd just like to say sorry if my voice sounds weird. If you guys saw my last video, you would know that I actually had laryngitis a few days ago and I couldn't talk. Luckily, by the time I went to Playlist, my voice was back and I was able to speak to everybody. However, my voice is still a little bit iffy, so sorry if it sounds a little bit off. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about was the venue. When I arrived there, I was extremely confused. I walked into the lobby, and this hotel and convention center are huge. Playlist Live was at the Caribe Royale All-Suite Hotel and Convention Center this year. So my friend and I, who I went with, walked into the lobby, and we walked straight through the middle down this huge staircase, and there was a lady there telling us to go to registration. When we got there, there were little booths with letters on the top, and you had to go to the one that matched your last name. And pretty much all you had to do was register, was give them your confirmation number, tell them your last name, and then they handed you a badge. The badges looked something like this. They had Playlist Live on the top, your first and last name, or whatever name you registered under, and then your username. Basically what you had to do with the badge was just wear it the whole time. It allowed you access into the convention center, and pretty much it just allowed you to be in the actual place where they were holding Playlist. When my friend and I got done with registration, we had no idea what to do. We walked out of the registration room and we walked around the pool, and we noticed that there was nobody there. So we ended up finally finding our way to the back, which was where the convention center was located, and we saw this huge line of people. Now, the first and second days were a little bit different from each other. The first day that I went, we all waited in this massive line until they opened up the convention center at 10 a.m. and then we all ran in there like crazy trying to get into the meetup rooms. However, on Sunday they did it differently. They let everybody in as they were in line, which actually ended up being a little bit more inconvenient for my friend and I because we weren't exactly in the front of the line, so we didn't end up getting into the convention center until an hour after it had opened. Certain parts of my personal Playlist Live experience were extremely stressful and pretty disappointing. However, I had so many great moments that overall my weekend was still absolutely amazing, and I'm so happy that I got to experience it. Pretty much the most stressful thing was the way that the large meetups were organized. I was talking to some girls who went last year and in years past, and they said that the meetups had never been organized the way that they were this year. Basically, there were 3 large conference rooms, and the security guards would let a certain number of people into these rooms, and once they shut the doors, anybody who wasn't inside wasn't allowed to meet the person who was having the meetup in that room. It made it extremely stressful because the people who wanted to be in the room were pushing in. And at one point for Tyler Oakley, I got put into a huge mob and I was being pushed and I almost fell over. It was absolutely insane, and I had no idea what was going on at first, but everybody who wanted to be in that room was making sure that they were getting in there even if they had to push you. They literally did not care what got in their way. Ultimately, I made it into some rooms and I got locked out of some rooms. I really wanted to go to Playlist to meet Dan and Phil, and unfortunately by the time I got to the conference room, the line had already been cut. This, for me personally, was the most disappointing and most saddening moment of my whole weekend. I really wanted to meet them, and I actually started to cry when I got locked out of the room. The reason why I was so disappointed was because I hadn't met anybody the whole day on Saturday so far, and I felt like this was just going to keep happening to me and I wasn't going to meet anybody. Luckily, right outside of the 3 conference rooms, there's a huge hallway that connects everything in the convention center together, and I met so many YouTubers just walking around. Before I went, people told me that I had a better chance of seeing people just walking around than in the actual meetups, and to be honest, I didn't really believe them. I thought my chances of seeing some YouTubers that I like were slim to none, but ultimately I ended up meeting about 9 or 10 people just in passing. You would just be walking around with their other fans or some other YouTubers, and you could literally just go up to them, tap them on their shoulder, and ask them for a picture. I know not everybody had the same experience meeting people as I did, but personally, every single person that I went up to and met was extremely kind, and they seemed really happy to take pictures. Overall, I only ended up making it into 2 formal meetups, but I ended up meeting a total of I think 12 or 13 YouTubers, which I consider pretty good. Like I said before, everybody who I met was so extremely nice, and they just made my entire weekend. Another highlight of my weekend was that some of the big YouTubers who you weren't really able to meet in passing as much decided to have impromptu, informal gatherings. What this meant was they decided to have a second meetup where they would just get into the big expo hall and they would have a line formed, and then it was an informal meetup and anybody who got in the line was able to meet them. Of course, there were certain cutoff points, so not everybody was able to meet them, but it was way less chaotic than the way that the actual formal meetups were held. Everybody was just patiently waiting their turn, and there were no problems, even though there was no security present. I think that the only reason that people were pushing and were really stressed out was because they thought that they might not get a chance to meet the YouTuber at all. There was just a big line of people. Everybody was patiently waiting because they knew that they were going to get their turn. So overall, I'd say that the organized meetups were a fail, but the informal meetups were a huge success. Now to the part you've all been waiting for, the food. So at Playlist, there was a number of places that you could go to get food. If you had a car, you could drive outside of the hotel in the convention center and get food and then come back, but personally, I didn't do that. There were places to eat inside the hotel, outside between the hotel and the convention center. There were food trucks, and then in the convention center, they had a line where you could go, and there was like a place that sold food inside. I expected the food prices to be astronomically high, and they were a little bit pricey for what the food was, but ultimately, I don't feel like I got that ripped off for it being at a large event. Also, on the main stage at Playlist Live, there were performances, musical performances, there were panels. I got to see a panel with Jim, Marcus, Alfie, Casper, and Joe, and I also got to see Tessa or Mika Kitty perform. I saw Patty Walters perform, I saw Lancifer, and I just saw a bunch of people on the main stage pretty much. The main stage room was huge and it was never crowded. You could either stand up at the front or you could sit down in the back, which was a really nice relaxing time. Also, there were bounce houses. In the very back of the convention center, there was a big tent, and right outside were bounce houses. I went to the bounce houses late on Saturday night, and so when I went, there was nobody else there. I went through an entire mob, pushing and screaming through to get into Tyler Oakley's meetup room, and the only battle scar that I got was from going down the bounce house slide. Seriously, look at how intense that thing is. Anyways, ultimately, my Playlist Live experience was, I'd say, extremely good for my first time. I was a little lost at first, so I probably wasn't as productive as I could have been if I was somebody who had already been there in years before. I ended up meeting so many people who I really wanted to see just in passing, and then I got to meet a couple of YouTubers like Glozell, Tyler Oakley, and Joe Sugg at actual meetups. Ultimately, my Playlist Live experience was a really good one. It definitely had its ups and its downs. I had moments where I was crying, like I told you before, and then I also had moments where I was literally galloping down the main hallway with my friends screaming, "I met Joe Sugg, I met Joe Sugg." Everybody who I met there, from the YouTubers to just the people who I met in line, were extremely nice, and I think that the fact that we all shared a hobby and a love together really gave us a bond and something to talk about. I feel so thankful and blessed that I got to go to this, and I hope to go again in future years when I actually know what I'm doing. Only thing that I would change about my Playlist Live experience would be the organization by the staff for the big meetups. This was their first year doing it, and to be completely honest, it was kind of a colossal failure, but I'm hoping that they'll learn from their mistakes next year. So that was my Playlist Live 2014 experience. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I don't know if it's up or down. Just subscribe if you guys like my videos and you want to see more. So if you guys want to hear and see more about my Playlist Live 2014 experience as it actually happened, throughout the time I was filming little clips like follow me around vlogs, and I will hopefully have a compilation of those and pictures up in a couple of days. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys also went to Playlist Live and that's why you're watching this video, be sure to let me know how your experience was, how it differed from mine, or how it was the same, and I would love to read about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Bye!